This is my continuing video on the shifter repair, shifter shaft sub-assembly repair, that is. And this one is broken right here. I pointed it out a number of times before. And that brake, this is the replacement part. You get this whole assembly. What's broken is this area right here is cracked on my original shifter assembly. It looks like it was made out of aluminum. That's probably why it cracked. Also, I've detected that the screws may be the culprit. They may have come loose, and by coming loose, offered wear possibilities there that were consistent with the braking of that part. And the way I discovered that was that I had to put everything back together again, which really wasn't that big of a deal. I put the shroud back on to help hold the shifter in place. I tightened up the screws, and when I tightened up the screws, the shifter worked properly. That is, it fell into park properly without having to push it in with my hand, as I described in one of the other videos. So anyways, that may keep you running for a while if you choose to keep your vehicle running while you're trying to get parts or waiting for parts. Anyways, I think that describes it pretty well. Another problem that I had was that the screw that holds a shifter in place, goes right there, is a star versus a Phillips head or a slot tip screw. And I had the wrong size. I was using a number 27, and I believe that stripped that screw out. Now, I have no idea if I had the T30 torque tip that I needed, if that would have alleviated this problem. But what I ended up having to do was order a new shifter arm right there, and that shifter arm is about $54. I think that yeah, I think that's about right. Plus I ordered a new screw to go with it, and that's about $1. And that screw is here. And that blue, which is Loctite, the tight Loctite versus the red, has an awful lot of Loctite on it, so that may have been the culprit also. Plus, it's hard to get pressure under this shifter. Hold this shifter up and in place in any way, shape, or form, and try to break that screw at the same time, because it flexes, and you need to put a lot of pressure on that screw and the tool while it's in place in order to break that Loctite, or whatever the problem might be. It might have been put in too tight too. But anyways, there's a combination of problems there that may lead to stripping that torque out. Again, that's a T30 torque, and that's what you use. That's what you need on this. There are 3 of them. This is the shifter assembly. There are 3 of them there. This one's hidden by the mechanism. This mechanism will have to be moved down out of the way to put that screw in. But you want to order 3 new screws as well, just for safety's sake, in case you strip those out. But I didn't have any problems loosening those screws. That's what befuddles me about my problem with the shifter, the screw, and I think that the shifter screw was probably stripped out for all the combination of reasons that I've already mentioned. Another thing is that this very back torque screw is going to be real hard to get at. You can't get at it with a standard size 3/8 ratchet. If you have a little breaker bar, that might get in there with a small extension, but it's cumbersome, it's difficult. Let's see if we can get a picture of it. Probably, there it is up there in the left-hand corner, I believe. Yeah, maybe you can't see it. It's up there behind this gizmo here. Anyways, there's not much room between the screw and this cable. This cable got to be removed anyways. You just don't have any room in here. So what I used was a 1/4 inch. I went down and bought this item here. It's a real small ratchet, or skinny ratchet. And I put the Torque 30, T30 in there. And I can reach that. It's not something I can do while I'm holding the camera, so you won't see that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take the whole mechanism out. I'm going to have to turn the video off to do that, and install the new one. You just can't do it. Even if my tripod could set up to watch this operation, it's just too much fumbling around, and it could make the project look more confusing than it is. Yeah, anyways, that's it for now. Like I said, I will be installing this piece. The hard part will be removing this screw up in this corner here. I've already loosened it, so I'm ahead of the game there. I've still got to loosen the bottom one here. The top one is already, I loosened up one time before. Let me reiterate something. When I had to put this quickly back together, and it does go back together quickly, so it's not a big deal. You don't have to put everything put back together. You don't have to put the airbag on to drive your vehicle. But you have to make that choice yourself. If you do take that shroud down, you'll have to pop that bottom shroud that goes underneath the steering area. There is a top shroud like this piece, there is a bottom shroud like this piece here, but I found that after I snapped this piece back into place, it wasn't necessary for me to install the bottom shroud. So all I drove around with was with this top shroud in place. And it snapped in place. I didn't have to screw it back in. There's 2 screws right here on these little bossings. It just snapped back in place and everything held together fine. As I said, once I got in there and tightened the screws, the three screws, actually the top 2 screws, here that are easily shown here, and here, the shifter mechanism, the shifter itself, no longer had the problem of going into park. It went into park. So again, tightening those screws may allow you to put your car back into park. It's a temporary fix. Now one other last thing. For the mechanics out there home mechanics out there that may know a welder, you could possibly take that mechanism off of there. Here you can see it's cracked from here. Right there. Try to get in there closer. Okay. So you can see it's cracked. And when I tightened up the screws, this came together tight and in place, and I was able to drive it. Anyways, back to home mechanics or mechanics. You might be able to pull this off. I don't have another car to drive around in, so I needed to keep this in place, but I could have possibly taken this off and taken it to a welder who welds aluminum and welded that. That would have been a good temporary fix. After all, once you get in there and you see what the problem is, and you know what you're up against. A guy that's a home mechanic will recognize that he can work with this on a temporary basis. Anyways, that's it for this video. Hope it's been helpful. I wish I would have had a more detailed video like this to go by. I did use what I could, and it helped me a lot. Over and out.